welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and today's car is a car I've been itching actually to tell you all about because it is my Jaguar Project 7, a car that arrived about 3 months ago, and I've already done 2,000 miles on it. We're in the middle of December and I didn't really expect to be still using it this time of year, but the local councils have been very kind and haven't really salted the roads, and we've had some opportunities still to be driving this sort of car. It's a car I've been pretty close to, as some of you will know, because I've been advising Jaguar Land Rover on special operations, and this is one of the cars that division was responsible, amongst a whole load of things like the lightweight E-Type we did, the 6 lightweight E-Types, Range Rover SVR, etc. It was one of those cars, as soon as I actually saw the concept back in Evo days, God, if they ever made one of those, I would love to own one of those, because it's just my sort of car. Anyway, let's go into the detail. I'm going to give you a tour round before, and then we'll go out for a drive in it and just show you what this Jaguar Project 7 is all about. Now, the Project 7 was first appeared at the 2013 Goodwood Festival Speed. This concept, this blue, wild Project 7, which was F-Type based. It was only ever built as a one-off, and there was no thought of putting it into production. But Jaguar could obviously see there was people who really wanted this car. In April 14, they announced that Special Operations was this new division. They're going to be doing SVO, these ultimate versions of Jaguar Land Rovers, and a few collector editions. And one of those was going to be the Project 7 you see here, and I was immediately attracted to it, as I say, because I love roadsters, I love limited run cars, and especially when they really differentiate them from the regular car. It's a lot lighter than a regular F-Type. It's 1580 kilos, so they managed to lose 80 kilos from it, and they've done that in a number of ways. The significant thing from an engineering point of view, first thing they did was cut down that screen, so the screen sits a fair bit lower than the regular F-Type. It's a shorter screen, and then it has this different nose on it as well, which I think is a really good looking nose. It normally has that bar running across where the number plate sits. On this car, that's gone. Bigger intakes for the intercoolers, supercharger air water intercoolers at the front. Carbon brakes are standard. Because it was built as a homage to the D-Type, it has that sort of fairing, that hump behind the driver's side. And that was a bit of a nightmare because, of course, we make these cars they make them in left-hand drive and right-hand drive. So that's two lots of body panels to make, and it's one-off. But God, the end result, I think, looks just fantastic. And one of the great things about the new Special Operations division is when you order a sort of collector car like this, there is the opportunity to bespoke your car should you wish to. And I've always admired, actually, how BRM brought to life this sort of fairly dull British Racing green colour. It's not quite British Racing BRM, by this flash of orange. Is there an opportunity to do that with Project 7? Design sort of did some renderings for it, and I thought, wow, that looks fantastic. And how we did it, we went to Brembo. They do an orange caliper, and then we copied that orange all the way through. So obviously we've got the orange grille, and then on the mirrors we have that sort of flash of orange on the carbon mirror. Finally at the rear, to add a sort of flash of colour, I did it on the underneath of the spoiler rather than just on top. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Paul Smith and how he uses colour sort of on the line of a suit or a surprise factor, and that's what I was trying to achieve with the spoiler. So when you follow the car, you see a full-on flash of orange from underneath, but when you walk around the car you don't quite see it, and I sort of really like that sort of feature. Inside there's a few other changes. There's carbon trim as standard. I went for the suede wheel, Project 7 on the detailing just on the front of the dash there, and also on the top of this header rail. You get a different sort of pattern on the leather stitching, carbon back seats as well. It's all part of the weight saving, and also the signature car number 1 and a signature by Ian Callum, designer at Jaguar. Now this car does come with a roof, but it hides in the boot and it seals the car extremely well, and I've driven up to 130 miles an hour with the roof on, no problem. So it's a proper roof. Other great details on Project 7 is obviously the flash of carbon on theirs, Project 7, and I also really like the sort of matte grey sort of exhaust pipes. Instead of having big chrome pipes coming out the back, I love that sort of industrial look of them. Works really well. It's still actually speed limited, but it's speed limited to 186, so a pretty serious speed, and it's generating significant downforce, this car, at that top speed. So you've got a large front splitter, as you can see there. It's pretty deep. Fortunately, it has a reasonable ride height, so I don't seem to be catching it too badly. Deep sills along the side, and then that sort of Venturian rear spoiler working at the rear. They describe it as a 177% increase in downforce at 200 clicks, so it really does work. The other thing on my car, I went for forced contact tyres, so a track day type tyre, because they're pretty good actually in real world. I went on the track day and the first corner was exciting, but once up to temperature, they add a bit to the steering feel, I feel, compared to the regular tyres. Horsepower on this car is 575 horsepower, so 25 horsepower more than the regular 550. But it's funny, when you lift the engine, they've taken actually the cover off. I was told by engineers it was for maximum cooling, so not putting a normal sort of engine cover that I actually hate. I quite like it. It's all bare like this. There's not even a dipstick. It's these modern cars. There's no need to go under the bonnet. Even the windscreen washer fill is at the back. So there you go. That's the engine on the Project 7. Now, it's not often I show you the boot on a car, but I think it's quite important on the Project 7, particularly I've done a few little tweaks here. First of all, if I lift it up, I had this lined in leather because it got me, there was a lot of the team who had been responsible for making this car, so I got them to all the guys who actually built this car in the SVO workshop to sign it. So there's that. Another thing I wanted to show you in here is this, because there was an option. If you ordered a Project 7, you could spend, where's the zip? You could spend an extra £750 and you could get one of the bespoke helmets as used on the concept car, which I think is, I mean, it's a really nice helmet. It's a Bell helmet. I just love the way, I didn't ask for this detail to be done, but they've done that in orange as well. Hands device, Jaguar. I can't say I'm going to use it very often, but it's just a very nice thing to have when you've got a sort of car like this. There's big bags for what's to store in the roof, and they would take up most of the boot. And it struck me there was a great big void, if I just do this, a great big void under here, which is where the original electric roof used to sit. Now, was there a way I could do that? So I was a bit naughty, just come up to me, I was a bit naughty, and I took a Stanley knife to my boot trim. Now this bit of boot trim normally sits sort of right back there on the roof of that. By taking that out, I could access that void, and really presto, if I give this a little wiggle, there are my great big bags for storing the roof. There's another one in there as well. I won't bother with that. What's this car's really all about is the driving, so let's take it out for a drive. It's a good sound, that. Some of the things with Project 7 then, 575 horsepower. When I actually spoke to the engineers, I said, is it really 575 horsepower? They said, oh yeah, it's at least 575. It produces, this engine is 5 litre V8 supercharged. It produces 575 horsepower in the worst conditions, so at sort of 40 degrees ambient, cooking engine, low pressure, it's still producing 575 horsepower. On a day like this, sort of, you know, middle December or something, he says, well, yeah, you're in the 580 horsepower or thereabouts, 585 perhaps. So there's a chunk of horsepower, and it's also about the torque. To get that horsepower, he also told me the supercharger is taking around 180 horsepower at peak power. So the sum total is 575 plus 180. You're at 750, 760 horsepower. The actual engine is producing. Those pistons and conrods are built and crank are built to survive 750 to 760 horsepower. Pretty good for a 5 litre engine. Torque, 680 Newton meters. And I sort of say to people, yeah, I know it looks like a cuddly Jaguar. It's actually got more power and torque than my Zonda S. That got by with 550 horsepower. Yes, torque was 750 Newton meters, but it had to be doing 4,000 something RPM. This is producing 680 Newton meters at 2,500 RPM on. It's actually torque limited by the gearbox, not by the engine. And that's more than my Zonda was producing at 2,500 RPM. It feels ballistic. This thing feels so over-engined. It's unreal. So we're warming the car up at the moment, so we're not tapping into that. But it's a delightless engine because it is proper angry. So just while I'm warming the engine up, I'm in sort of normal mode, and it's something that strikes me about this Project 7. It has two modes. There's a fairly nutty mode, which we'll get to in a minute, but there's also this sort of just easy lolloping, not a lot of noise drive. I haven't got it in dynamic when the exhaust comes alive. Oh, there we go. Oh, I've just touched the paddle, didn't mean to do that. Yeah, so you can just mooch around like this. You would never really know what's behind the curtain when you start pressing a few buttons. It's a nice carrot to have in a car like this, because quite often they are so extreme. And I say something like a GT3 RS is pretty extreme sort of machine, so you've got to be in the right mood to take it. The other surprise, this is a horrible bit of stretch of road here. And when I saw the spec, they were up in the spring rates by 80% at the front. I thought, well, what on earth's that going to feel like? But thanks to some very clever damping, it doesn't feel, the ride doesn't feel as crazy as you would expect from the spec sheet. Lord knows how they do it, but it's quite acceptable. One of the things I'm so pleased about this car, it passed the management test with flying colours. Mrs. Mitford really likes this car, which I was a little worried because it's a bit noisy and etc. But no, it's a really nice car to travel, to be a passenger in. Trying to decide what the closest rival is to this car when I was looking at it, and I suppose it's Aston Martin. Aston Martin do a V12 Vantage Roadster, and I remember looking at, I mean, I've always loved the V12 Vantage anyway, especially manual, etc. And then they did a Roadster, but it struck me that car's pretty heavy, much heavier than you expect. It's 1760 kilos, something like that. Time we've shed the weight on the Project 7, Jaguar got it down, it's rated at 1585 kilos, so about 180 kilos lighter than the Vantage V12 Roadster. And then it's sort of it's got more horsepower, it's got more torque, and it's a chunk cheaper as well. Other things I really like about it, it's got a furnace of a heater. I used to remember from my Ferrari 550 days, there's nothing like a big powerful engine to produce a lot of heat. My kids have got it's got a Fiat Twin Air, my daughter's got one. Heater's rubbish on it because it's only got this sort of 2-pot, 750cc engine. What you need is a proper 5 litre. Or my Ferrari 550, that was getting hot in the cabin just going down the drive in 200 metres. Similar sort of heater on this thing, and I love how the vents sort of rise out the dash when it's all up to temperature. I had a regular coupe just before picking this car up, and I was really surprised how different it was. I mean, you think the ingredients are so close. The engine map, completely different. The aggressiveness, the way this delivers the power is even greater than the regular Jaguar R, which is fairly deranged if you're lucky enough to have driven one. Steering didn't feel quite so good on the regular F-Type as well. I mean, it's really surprising how much having that extra, it's 1.5 degree negative camber at the front instead of 0.5 degree, and a bit more caster. That dramatically changes. Right, what you do, touch the paddle, you're straight into manual, third gear, and here we go. Flat out, just put your foot down. No, this is a car you have to balance, especially on these tires. They do need a little bit of temperature in them, and it so reminds me of the Zonda. That was a very similar car that you couldn't just sort of get clumsy with the pedals, give it all horsepower, because it'll just spit you off. And the F-Type this Project 7 is a bit like that, but once up to temperature, once you're in the zone, it's glorious. See, I'll just slow down a bit. Probably see, I mean, buffeting isn't that bad. I think this fairing really helps behind your head. It's screen, I'm sort of tucked down, seats go lower in the Project 7 to a regular F-type. I'm in a sort of really nice cosy spot, especially with the heater full on like it is today. It always feels this over-engine feel. There's always too much horsepower, which I just adore in a car. It means you can't just jump in it and really, you know, get to 100% of its abilities straight away. This is a car you have to learn and you have to sort of engage with it and then read the road, just like riding a bike. You look at the surface, how much horsepower can I use on this surface? So it's a wonderful driving machine. You know, I love the weapons we've got today. We're in such an amazing, if you're a car enthusiast, the sort of cars we've got today, like McLaren 12C and Ferrari 488, massively talented cars. I remember coming down here in the Lamborghini Huracan, shockingly fast in the four-wheel drive. But it's almost, you can just use that horsepower. This car is a lot of driver input to how you drive and how you get the most out of it. Got a nice thing, it's got a dynamic mode. You can actually set how you want it. So I have it set with full on in dynamics. I have the engine map, the aggressive engine map, steering slightly different as well. Electric steering on this rather than a hydraulic rack, but on the suspension I have that as sort of normal, not in the dynamic mode. It's good on track, but I just think it ups the damping, makes it slightly too firm for a road like this. But in normal mode it works a treat. The steering is ace. Can't get over how different it is to a regular F-Type. Just sharper on the turn in. Such a rapid car, but I've been to Goodwood with it and I was really amazed how good it was on track. It was a mistake. I got that Porsche so-called GT2 for sort of track work. The blessed thing blew its clutch pipe, so I had to take this with a few hundred miles on it, sort of running in. Amazing on track. I couldn't believe, once we got the first couple of corners, got the tyres up, how I could trust the chassis. It wasn't this animal I was expecting when you're sort of nibbling at the limits. Just nice. One of my favourite bits of corners just coming through here. So you have to be gentle with that throttle. But oh, do you feel it when and the pops and the bangs coming from it. Massively exciting. Slow things up again. Should mention the gearbox as well. It's a ZF 8-speed automatic torque converter. I can remember when torque converters, you'd never put a torque converter in a car like this. ZF have worked magic with current gearbox technology. There's an instant change on this, and like what's great about dual clutch transmission gearboxes compared to the old paddle shift gearbox is you're getting torque through the gear change. You've got on a dual clutch transmission, you've got one clutch letting go and one biting. So you go to, say you've got 100 horsepower, you're still at about 50 horsepower through the gear change, and it's the same with torque converter. There's always power going to the back wheels through the gear changes. And with 8 speeds, I'm chucking gears at it. There's no going out of fashion. This not long gear. One of my criticisms of Porsche, current range of Porsches, is you're sort of doing 70 in second with the manual gearbox. So you don't actually get to enjoy taking the car up to its limit because you're at illegal speeds. With the 8-speed ZF in this, I'm just flicking through the gears all the time, and that's just so rewarding. I'm not thinking it's a torque converter gearbox. Just immense power, and like the throttle, you have to modulate it. There's enough power there to happily lock the gear, get the ABS triggered. Oh, it's too much fun. Well, I hope that gives you a little taste of what Project 7 is all about. I'm having an absolute ball of this car. I'm using it much more than I expected. Really excited. exciting. I had that Ferrari 550 Barchetta, which is now up for sale because this car has a chassis I can really lean on, I can enjoy, which the Ferrari didn't. It never had a voice I expected from a Ferrari. Might be a V12 manual, but this is a driver's car, just knocks spots off. So that's going, and I'm going to enjoy my Project 7 for quite some time. If you enjoy this video, keep tuned.